All right, welcome back. Today we're talking about the Trail 125 and whether or not it's a good choice for a lightweight entry-level adventure bike, or if you're better off with something bigger like a Suzuki DR200. So we've had these bikes for less than 6 months, and in that time we've put hundreds of miles on both of them in a combination of pavement and gravel here locally. Then we decided it'd be a great idea to load them up, head to Colorado, and soak in some mountain air. In Colorado, we hit a variety of terrain from sand, some mud, rocks, pavement, and gravel. Having ridden both of these bikes, I think I've got a pretty good opinion on the pros and cons of each if you're looking for an adventure bike for an inexperienced rider. All right, just to recap a little bit, this is a 2022 Honda Trail 125. In previous videos, we mounted new tires, added some Barkbusters handguards, and built some custom crash bars that definitely got used. If you haven't seen those videos, be sure to check them out and make sure you subscribe so you can see future videos on this bike and many others. For this trip, we mounted a plastic storage box to the back of the Trail 125. We're both pretty new adventure riders, so we decided not to load up the bikes with a bunch of camping gear and make them heavy. So this box just had to hold our lunch, a spare inner tube, some batteries and GoPros and that sort of thing. This is the large Apache box from Harbor Freight, and it's mounted to the cargo rack using 4 bolts that pick up 4 drilled and tapped holes that are already in the cargo rack from the factory. This is just a piece of 20 gauge steel plate that I used to make a kind of a sandwich plate to keep the bolts from ripping through the plastic. We mounted a dry bag here in front just for additional layers. In the mountains, the weather changes constantly. You went from warm and sunny to cool and raining, and so you end up adding or removing layers throughout the day. And then the other thing we added was a fuel bottle. The Trail 125 has a listed fuel capacity of just over a gallon, and it's rated for 90 some miles per gallon, but you never know how long that's actually gonna be on the trail. So this is an MSR fuel bottle. It holds about 30 ounces of fuel, and that just helps relieve any range anxiety. The bottle's just held on there with 2 hose clamps, goes through the handle on the box and then through the cargo rack. And we mounted it back here just to keep it out of the way. It's well protected when the bike fell over. And if it did leak for whatever reason, it wouldn't leak on the exhaust or anything critical. With a screwdriver, they come off pretty quickly. All you gotta do is loosen them and you can slide the bottle out. And now you may be thinking, man, I gotta carry a screwdriver. Well, let me show you how we took care of that. All right, so up here on the headlight, I have mounted a pistol magazine pouch that holds a multi-tool. This is just a cheap $10 multi-tool. It doesn't have to be fancy, but it's got screwdriver, pliers, a lot of stuff that's handy to have around. And so this is convenient. If you need to use a zip tie and clip it off, or you need a screwdriver and you need a pair of pliers, it's always handy and available, no digging around to find it. So if you need to charge a phone here on this RAM mount, for instance, since there's no power port up here, you can just put this multi-tool in your bag or the toolbox, slide a battery pack in there, and then a short USB cable, and you can charge your phone. All right, so let's talk really quickly about some of the pros of the Trail 125. First of all, there's no manual clutch, which means no stalling, and that makes it really forgiving. Also, it's got a low center of gravity, so the engine sits really low and the cylinder sits horizontally, which makes it really, really forgiving on the trail compared to something taller like a DR200. And so if you're just gonna be doing gravel roads and maybe some pavement at slower speeds, this bike is great. As soon as the trail gets rougher, you're gonna run into issues, and let me kind of explain what those are gonna be. So one major problem with the Trail 125 is it's a small bike. So I'm 6 feet tall for reference. The seating area is really cramped for me. So the handlebars can actually end up in your lap here, hitting my leg on slow maneuvers at low speed. Naturally end up moving farther back on the seat. Farther back you sit, the more you sit over this bar on the front of the cargo rack. So when seated and I hit a bump, that bar hits me squarely in the tailbone. It's not comfortable, but just for reference, my wife is 5'4". When she rides, that doesn't hit her at all. It's not an issue. So the natural solution for bumpy trails and roads would be to stand up on the pegs, right? So your knees can absorb some of the bumps. But let me show you the problem with that on the Trail 125. The Trail 125 has a heel-toe shifter. And this is designed to be new rider friendly because apparently some people find this much, much easier. So this is a women's size 8 boot. And you can see here, there's really no position on the pegs where you can stand without affecting one or the other or both at the same time. If you're going on a bumpy section, trying to stand on the pegs, you end up bumping this and shifting gears, sometimes into neutral. So honestly, the back half of this shifter is probably going to get cut off and is just going to become a toe shifter. The step-through frame is great for getting on and off the bike if you're a shorter rider, but since there's no tank or seat in this area, you've got nothing to brace your knees against in a steep downhill section. And as we said before, it's very difficult to stand up on this bike. So to get your weight back, you're sitting on this bar, which is literally a pain in the butt, and then your upper body is rested against the handlebars and you're bracing yourself here. So you lose your fine motor control and it makes a steep downhill section very, very difficult. And so the last issue really is speed. In the flatlands, if you will, at less than 1,000 feet altitude, this bike can easily go 55 miles an hour. At higher altitudes though, the best thing this would do was 47 miles an hour. Sometimes we'd end up taking 2-lane highways to either take us back to the truck or the hotel. On a 60 mile an hour speed limit highway, 47 is just really, really low and slow. And it's not really safe or comfortable when the cars are piling up behind you. And that's really only an issue if you want to do 2-lane highways. An adventure bike, if you're going to say this is going to be a lightweight adventure bike, it's got to be able to take you almost anywhere. A 200 class dual sport like a DR200 is going to be better in almost every single way than the Trail 125. So the seat, tank, and pegs are all set up for either sitting or standing. The 21-inch front wheel is going to roll over bumps and obstacles better than the 17-inch wheel of the Trail 125. It's got a lot more suspension travel, so even on rough roads you can go faster, smoother, and be much more comfortable. And it's got more power, so even at altitude this could still pull 55, 60 miles an hour. So the only advantage of the Trail 125 over a 200 class dirt bike really is the lower center of gravity. The actual weight of the bike is not that much different. It's within like 10 or 15 pounds according to the spec sheets. So if you can handle the higher center of gravity and deal with the clutch, the manual clutch, you're going to be much more comfortable and much more capable on a 200 class dual sport. And so the Trail 125 is still a great bike for what it is. It's probably not going anywhere anytime soon. If you're willing to take an angle grinder to it, you can cut off this shifter, cut off the bar behind the seat, and you'll have a great little bike to explore with. Anyway, I hope you find that helpful. If you're considering a Trail 125 or considering getting into adventure riding, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.